AITA for not being more supportive to my wife after our son decided to change his name. A lot has been going on with our family, particularly on my wife's side. A few months ago her mother got in contact with her estranged daughter, my wife's older half-sister, who left the family and cut off all contact the moment she was 18. To make a long story short, some very dark things were revealed about my wife's late father that her mom hid from the family that involved her sister, and that's why she took off. The whole family knows now, and I've been trying to be there for my wife as she processed this shocking news. The thing is, our son who is 16 found out from his cousins and he is disgusted by it. He happens to be named after her father, and my son has started telling us he wants to change his name. My son said he doesn't like knowing who he is named after and would rather it be something else. That my wife and I could even help him picking out a new one. My wife immediately shut him down and they had a fight. When we all had a family sit down, my wife said our son was named after the good things her father did and that's what he should be remembered by. But those actions are not something that can be overlooked no matter what other good things he did. Frankly, I am disgusted and horrified too, so I support my son's decision if that's what he wants. My wife has been angry at me ever since, accusing me of not caring or supporting her through this. But we have had many deep conversations about this news even before our son announced what he wanted. I completely respect her feelings, but I also need to respect my son's. My wife isn't on board with this at all, and she says by allowing this name change instead of trying to change his mind, it's like I don't care about her feelings at all, which makes me an L in her eyes. We trying to see about getting some family therapy just to deal with everything going on, but I'd like to know what others think. Am I being in butt face for supporting him wanting to change his name instead of convincing him not to? If your father-in-law did what I think he has, then your wife really needs to sit down and think if she truly wants her son to be named after a person like that. There are just some terrible things that cannot be looked over and that some good deeds cannot undo. I agree. I understand he was her father and of course she has different memories of him. We all have a different memory of him. But once something like that is out, well, for me personally, those memories are not the same anymore. I illegally changed my name in my early 20s because it never felt like it fitted who I was, and was named after the daughter of someone prominent in my country whose political views I disliked. As I grew older, I can't imagine finding out that the person I was named after had done something truly awful. You are to support your son for not wanting to bear the name of a disgraced relative, and he should definitely change it to something he is comfortable with. Your wife may have good memories of her father, but that doesn't wipe out the stain now the truth is known about him. Keep supporting your son and engage in some family therapy with your wife and son so that she can come to understand his and your perspective, and that it doesn't need to destroy her good memories of her father just because your son no longer bears his name. Your wife is doing exactly what her mother did. She trying to excuse her father's behavior or pretend it did not happen by remembering good things her father did. Your son's name is his, and he should have the right to be called something he is comfortable with. Your wife's feelings about this, ultimately, matter less than your son's. He is even giving her the chance to pick another name, which he really doesn't have to. I thought that was sweet. The kid clearly gets his integrity from his dad. Simply put, your wife's feelings on the issue are not important next to your son's, as it is him that actually has to deal with being named after some abusive garbage. Sounds like the real root issue is your wife still not having come to terms with who her father actually is and was. Your son is lucky to have you supporting him, especially since his mother will not. I hope you don't back down. I am actually impressed with the son's courage and maturity too. He deserves respect for evaluating the situation better than his mother and wanting to stand up for justice rather than be associated with an abusive piece of st. AITA, I think therapy would be a great idea for you all right now to give you a neutral, healthy space to express how you feel, and hopefully a place where your wife can start to understand that it isn't a personal attack on her. It is simply what is now most comfortable for your son. If he is already expressing a negative view towards the name, it is likely to sit with him for many years to come. I did have to agree with you here, but hopefully a therapist will be able to help your wife come to terms with the changes. AITA, she is not the one who has to live with the name. If a person wants to change their name for whatever reason, that all parents should support that choice. The name you give them is a gift, and like all gifts, it might not be a good fit for them and they prefer something else. That does not mean that they do not respect you or love you or appreciate the gift. Yes, if the son said that he did not like his name for almost any reason, I would tell OP to support him. Add in the circumstances and there is no way I could not support the name change. AITA, go dad, nice job. I admire your son's reflection on what he can and cannot control in this situation. Furthermore, he is 15 not 5 and deserves the option to keep or change his name. When secrets are revealed, raw emotions are expressed. Perhaps the family is still in this raw stage. Consider counseling or a moderator to guide you through this topic. If your wife has absolutely no approach is supported, I am concerned it will cause lasting harm. Best to you all. AITA, your wife is having a hard time handling the news, but she is hurting her son in the process. Obviously, your dad Phil is the biggest owl, but your wife is a bit of one too. Your son should be allowed to change his name. AITA, I think supporting your son's decision to change his name in this circumstance is the right one. It's his name, he is the one who has to live with it. He clearly has a very valid reason, and in 2 years he can legally change it himself, so is it really worth the damage to their relationship to prevent him? I feel sorry for your wife. She is dealing with a lot and is probably not bringing her best self to the table when dealing with your son's request. I am glad you are looking into family therapy. It took me this long to find someone else who wanted to point out that in 2 years, it does not matter what she thinks and he will change it anyway. Having family support now is good, and it keeps the relationship strong. Op's son may start to distance himself from his mother until the point that one day he just shows up with a new name. Though due to I think the emotional support that having a child named after her father has given her, but now that S new picture is painted, she needs new support. AITA, I have never understood naming your kids with their grandfather's name but WE. She is holding on this to not totally break her image of a good father, but use your son as an emotional totem or something at the same time. Completely unfair. Your son has been incredibly mature about it, including you both in the process. She does not even realize that supporting her here means just bypassing totally any of your son's feeling. My grandmother's maiden name was Cameron. She developed Alzheimer's when I was 5, so I never knew the true her. I did know her brothers quite well. My great-uncles were very much a part of my life until their deaths. They all died before I reached adulthood, so my children knew none of them. I gave my youngest the middle name of Cameron to give her a tie to some of the kindest and funniest people I had ever known. We don't have a large family and she had never met anyone outside of immediate family. She knows her mother, her brother, her father, and her grandmother. When she asked about why I chose her names when she was a teen, she appreciated the tie that came with her middle name. So much so that when she came out as transgender, she chose to keep her middle name. Hooray for a gender-neutral name. That's why some of us choose to use a family name like a grandfather's name. It's between a child and a person who would have loved to meet them but died before the chance to do so. My uncles would have adored my daughter, and after all of the stories she heard about them while growing up, she was sad she never got to meet them. When she learned her middle name was their last name, it made her feel like she was a part of their life story and gave her a sense of familial connection that she didn't have before. That being said, if it came out that one of the uncles had done something truly horrifying, I would 100% be behind another name change as well. AITA, but possibly a nah. Let me explain. If this is what I think it is, the chances of other family members also having experienced the abuse are very likely. If your wife possibly went through this as well or witnessed it, this may be about her need to deny It may be too difficult to admit or address that her mother covering enabled that to occur. It is very rare for an abuser to stop, especially if no one held them accountable. I would focus on helping your son. He needs you to help hold his grandfather responsible. Changing his name removes that honor. Next is getting your wife to a therapist who deals with family trauma. If not abused physically, these type of cover-ups cause a lot of trauma. Sincerely, she who was like that older sister, except I took my siblings with me at 18. I have not even talked to my mother since my stepbrother's funeral. Suicide at 19, 16 years ago. AITA. I am very, very familiar with the type of situation we all are in right now. I have a lot of sympathy for your son in this situation. First off, you should be insanely proud of your son. The fact that he realizes the gravity of his grandfather's actions and the consequences of them speaks very highly of his empathy, which is one quality that is commonly overlooked but is supremely important to have. That is a seriously amazing kid you have there. So make sure he knows it. Secondly, your wife absolutely needs to be in counseling, like yesterday. Why all should have some family sessions, sure, but she needs to be in individual therapy too. She has an entire image of her father that she has to overhaul. That is not gonna be easy. Right now, she is mourning the death of the father she thought she knew. She is confronting the fact that her mother enabled her husband's actions to the detriment of her children. She is also realizing that she has missed out on a sisterly relationship for years because of her parents. She is also having to overhaul the image of her sister that was most likely painted by her parents. And finally, deep down, she has gotta be wondering if what happened to her sister ever happened to her. And she just does not remember. All that is a lot to deal with. So add in her son wanting to change his name because it is the same as her dad's. Safe to say it is probably close to the last straw. So yeah, she needs counseling. All in all, it is your son's name and he has a right to change it. Your wife is dealing with a lot for sure, but she needs to set her own emotions aside in this instance. Because it is not about her, it is about your son not wanting to saddled with his grandfather's legacy. I am sure that is heartbreaking for her, but her father was not the good man she thought he was. The only thing you can do for your wife is be there for her as she deals with the fallout from her parents. And get her into counseling. Also, get yourself into counseling too, because you are going to be dealing with a lot of emotional backwash from a lot of different angles. You are gonna need a safe place to vent to. AITA name is an important part of anyone's identity, which is of huge importance for a teenager. He can be held hostage of your wife's torment, and they both need to find ways of coping with this without impacting each other's freedoms. Good on you for supporting your son with this, and hope your wife soon finds her way to overcome this form of grief and other ways of remembering the good in her father. AITA. Your son can always change his name when he hits 18 if you in the States not sure about laws elsewhere, but if he has to wait that long he is really gonna resent his mom, and maybe you, too, if you don't stand up for him. I am sorry this is happening to your family, but your wife needs to consider that she is not the victim here. Her sister was, and now her son is, too. AITA. Your son is being fair and generous, allowing you and your wife to help pick a new name. However, if your wife does not get on board and realize how badly your son needs and deserves a new name, then she will likely find herself estranged from your son when he decides to go ahead and pick his own name when he is old enough to legally change it himself. Also, is your wife not interested in reconnecting with her sister? Does she not realize that it may be terribly difficult for her sister to spend time with her nephew, your son, as he shares the name with the person whose behavior forced her out of the family? AITA. Your wife isn't stuck with the name. She has her grief to process, but she shouldn't force a name on your son that he doesn't want. Unfortunately, without her support there is nothing he can legally do until he is 18. In the meantime, help him come up with a new name. Is there any other adult males on her side of the family that either one is close to? Maybe if you and everyone around son agree to call him by his chosen name, your wife will come to terms with it. I am glad you are pursuing therapy. Good luck. The saddest thing here for me is your wife is basically trying to do the same enabling thing the mother did in life and cover it up and avoid it. He's dead now, so it's not the same dynamic, but that was my first thought. As someone who is close to my sister, I'd be devastated if she decided to overlook that to remember him by the good things he did. Edit to add NTA. Nah, accept your fill and possibly your mill for keeping it hidden. My suggestion is to put any final decisions on hold until you have all three been to therapy together and separately. Then, once you restart it, you can talk this over together and make a decision. For what it's worth, I see both sides, but I truly think I mostly support your son here. Assuming I am reading between the lines correctly, there are some things that cannot be overlooked. I'd never want to be named after someone who did those things, even for the good parts. And, just to add and to be clear here, there is a person in my family who we learned did some of those things. No one says his name in a good way, ever. No one in my family would ever honor him in any way. NTA. There is a very distinct reason Adolf plummeted in popularity. Despite being a strong historical German name, actions have consequences. Sometimes those consequences are multi-generational. NTA. But have you considered that if your wife's father did those things to her sister, he quite possibly did those things to her as well, and that embracing the good things her father did might be her way of coping with it? You're not wrong to support your son, but I would be really gentle with your wife here too. NTA. This is all heavy stuff to be dealing with. Emotions are being processed at different rates. Good for you seeking family therapy. This is definitely above this sub's pay grade. Sending lots of well wishes to you and your family. NTA. I am a transgender activist and I have helped a lot of people to change their names. A name is a gift, given with good intentions. As with any gift, a reasonable gift giver wants the gift to serve the recipient. If I give you a bag and your style changes, or you just find a bag that you vibe with better, I expect you to do away with the bag. I gave it in hopes that it would be a blessing in your life, not a burden. Same with names. At some point, sometimes they just do not fit anymore. They become a burden. My old name was my dad's name. It became a burden to me and now I am Rachel. The new name is a blessing now. Gifts given as an obligation are pretty awful gifts. NTA. Your son has a totally understandable reason for wanting to change his name, and your wife is not being understanding of that whatsoever. Keep supporting your son's choice to change his name, and keep pushing for your wife to be more supportive too. But you could also support her in the sense of sentiments like, I know this must be hard for you though. I know you just wanted to honor your dad and it is gonna be an adjustment calling our son another name, but this is what is best for him due to what we know now regarding the bad her dad did, and this is what our son wants, so we need to support him, etc etc etc. NTA. In the end, it is your son that has to live with the name, so it is only your son's feelings that matter. Your wife needs to find a way to accept your son's choice, because he will change the name now or when he is legally old enough, and he will never forgive for having been forced to live with this name, and it will affect the relationship with him for the future. NTA. It is his name. Your wife needs to get over herself and let the kids change his name. I would not want to be named after a horrible person either.